It's Super Bowl weekend, and quite possibly the two worst fan bases in all of sports have somehow made it all the way to the championship. So we at the Board Game Archives thought to rewind the clock back to 1994 and look at an NFL edition of the classic Monopoly. Today we're going to explore NFL-Opoly, look into how it differs from traditional Monopoly, and look at all the little quirks that make it a product of its time. This game is about 30 years old. Like I said, it comes from 1994, and so it's really interesting to see how much has changed between then and now. For those who may not be aware of Monopoly or its rules, this is a very quick overview on how the game plays. Monopoly is a multiplayer board game where players go around a board and try and pick up different pieces of property in order to financially dominate their opponents. Whenever you purchase a specific property, it belongs to you, and anytime anybody else lands on that property, they owe you a little bit of money. So, in theory, the more you own, the more you'll profit, just like a real Monopoly. In NFL-Opoly, however, businesses and properties have been changed out for players and teams in the NFL as of 1994. So throughout the board, different spaces will be given to different teams and players. As you can see here, every single spot has a different player or team on them, and you have the opportunity to purchase them, so to speak, for a certain cost. Some of the players, for example, include Warren Moon, Emmitt Smith, John Elway, Dan Marino, Brett Favre, and Barry Sanders. Every single team, meanwhile, has a logo of their helmet on the NFL-Opoly box, which is really cool because you get to see the logos of each team as they were back in the 90s. These logos are in fact so old that some teams have changed their logos entirely, moved locations, or even changed their name outright. Notably, Washington has become the Commanders, and the Houston Oilers have become the Tennessee Titans. Also, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Houston Texans, and the Carolina Panthers did not even exist at this game's creation. As you progress through the game, you're going to have to pass by each conference and division as you play, giving you an ample opportunity to buy up whatever team you feel is your favorite. This next portion is going to be dedicated to all the rule changes between NFL-Opoly and regular Monopoly, so here's everything that I could personally find. First off, like I mentioned, you're able to buy specific players and teams, and you'll earn a deed for them. I would recommend that the best way to organize your deeds is to stack them together. Have the best team in the league be the top card, and then have the bottom card be the most pathetic excuse of a franchise you've ever seen in your life, the one that you wish would never ever win a game ever again. Once they're stacked, you can put them at the center of the board. Currency in the game comes in the form of these little chips. The white chips are worth 1 point each, the red are worth 2 points, and the blue are worth 5 points. These point chips are the game's currency. You start out with 24 points in total, mixed in however many white, red, and blue chips you want. And these are how you'll be able to buy teams and pay fines if you land on someone else's space. In total, there are 50 white chips, 25 blue chips, 25 red chips, for a total of 100. Each team and player spot will have a number over them. That's how many points they are worth. So if you land on a specific space and want to buy it, you're going to have to spend double that number in order to earn that space. So since Cleveland is worth 2 points, you'd have to spend 4 to buy that franchise. From then on out, anybody else who lands on Cleveland owes you 2 points. If you land on another player's space and find that you don't have enough points to pay the amount that is on that space, you can elect to go into receivership. In receivership, you pick one of your spaces and give it up, and you earn the amount of points that card was initially worth. If you end up landing on a space that you gave up in receivership again, you can buy it back for the same number of points as there are on the card, plus an additional 3-point penalty. If another player gets there first, however, they can pick up the card for themselves completely free, so it's a complete gamble to work with. The game concludes whenever 2 players go bankrupt, or whenever the game reaches 1 hour of playtime. To calculate your final score, you're going to add the number of points you currently possess with the value of each team and player you have. If you own every deed in a conference, then the total value of each card doubles. So 10, 12, and 10 here, rather than 5, 6, and 5. 32, rather than 16 in total. If you own an entire division, meanwhile, the total point value of every single card triples rather than doubles. To calculate your final score, take the total value of every single deed that you own, add that to the number of points that you have left, and then divide that entire number by 6. Whoever has the highest score obviously wins. Now for a few notes on some specific spaces. First off is the league office. Throughout the game, players are going to continuously rack up fines, and will have to give points to the center of the board. Whoever lands on the league office first is able to collect every single point in that center of the board. Those who land on this specific space are benched. They have to end their turn immediately and lose their next turn. Kickoff is the starting space. Every time you lap the entire board and pass kickoff, you earn a 6-point bonus. Lastly, if you get benched and lose your turn, you'll have to do so on this specific corner of the board. If you're just passing through, you simply take a timeout. 2 more points of randomness are the wild cards and the penalty cards. There are going to be multiple spaces in which you can earn either of these cards. The penalty cards, of course, are penalties. The wild cards could have any sort of effect. And that right there is NFL-Opoly in a nutshell. Now, this game is very similar to the original Monopoly. Because it is a Monopoly game in and of itself, it's still going to have very similar rules, but I love the way that this game stands out on its own. I grew up on sports. Sports are incredibly important to me personally, and so to be able to have a game that is focused in on football as it was in the 90s really cheers me up. Sports have been a very important part of my life since I was a kid. I live in the Dallas area, so I remember stories my dad told me about people like Tony Dorsett and like Nolan Ryan. I got to grow up watching Tony Romo and Dirk Nowitzki and Luka Doncic. So although we cover board games here, I really appreciate whenever we get to look at sports, as it has always been a very important part of my life. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate you getting this far, and as always, let's go Cowboys!